Welcome to Maine Voices live stream. Before we begin, some messages from our sponsors.
Along the river's edge, there's a special place where concrete gives way to water and trails. A place for nurturing and healing, where advanced medicine and compassionate people come together. Introducing the new Northern Light Mercy Hospital, offering more services in one convenient location and the same care we started with, that's accessible to all. Because Maine made us devoted to the health of our entire community.
The Portland area's trusted choice for senior living, Stroudwater Lodge, gives Maine seniors independence and families peace of mind. Residents enjoy chef-prepared meals, unique programming like beer brewing or classes led by local artists, along with all the maintenance-free benefits of community living. With their sister community, Avita, specializing in memory care on the same campus, Maine families have a wide variety of care options in a beautiful wooded setting, yet minutes from downtown Portland. To learn more, visit StroudwaterLodge.com.
Good evening. I'm Lisa DeSisto, CEO and publisher of the Portland Press Herald. Welcome to Maine Voices Live. We are so excited for tonight's event featuring Brian Ross, the creator of the wildly popular Facebook group, Quarantine Kitchen. Brian is going to be sitting down with the Press Herald's new food and dining reporter, Tim Cebula. I'd like to once again thank our generous sponsors for making Maine Voices Live possible. Stroudwater Lodge, Hub Furniture, and our presenting sponsor, Northern Light Health. Thank you. So Brian Ross started the Facebook group Quarantine Kitchen in March 2020 so people could share pantry recipes during the first phase of the pandemic. His network of foodie friends around Maine helped launch the group to 8,000 members in the first 2 weeks, and now 11,000 members strong from 75 countries. Quarantine Kitchen sustains itself with a steady supply of home cooking photos and kind words for each other's efforts. Brian's going to be joined by Tim Cebula, who's been a food writer and editor for more than 23 years. A former correspondent for the Boston Globe food section, his work has appeared in Time, Health, Food and Wine, and many other publications. He's also a former judge for both the restaurant and journalism portions of the James Beard Awards. He was most recently senior editor at Cooking Light magazine, where he worked for 13 years before joining the Press Herald team. Please welcome to the stage Brian Ross and Tim Cebula.
Hi, thank you very much, Lisa. And so, as mentioned, I'm here with Brian Ross, the founder of the Facebook phenomenon, Quarantine Kitchen. Brian, could you tell us a little bit about how Quarantine Kitchen came about, and I guess a little bit about your own food background as well?
Very good. Thank you so much for having me on as well. This is an exciting time. The Quarantine Kitchen, I guess, it began during a time that, again, lockdowns were starting to happen. There was actually the popular quarantine karaoke that was occurring a little bit before that, and started to see the type of reach that things were having at that point. Again, things were getting locked down. I wasn't getting out myself, and I had a good number of things in the pantry and a limited number of things in the pantry, I guess I should say. And we had to figure out a way, how can we use these things together? So again, I got together with a few friends, and at first we had anticipated putting out a site that was going to be more instructional, being able to show people how to use what was in the pantry. And we started it up, we opened the doors And all of a sudden, there wasn't room for us to show anybody how to do things. They were suddenly showing us how to do everything. It literally, the floodgates opened, and all of a sudden, people are coming up with so many different ways to utilize the dwindling supplies at the time. It's when everything on the shelves were bare. Different than now. You know, now we can't find cat food or pasta, but back then again, it was the rice and flour and some of the basics.
It's a great service, really, that you provided for people, because pantry cooking can be quite tricky if you aren't that comfortable in the kitchen, just coming up with the possibilities.
Now, again, and we, at that point, we were looking at limited products as well as limited supply of different things. So how can we effectively use that bottle of XYZ that we've had in the pantry for the last 2.5 years, that we've kind of passed by every time we went into the pantry, or you know, the different things that are literally that have been sitting there for years sometimes. Let's use.
I remember you talked about, you mentioned and actually photographed a can of something that you'd found in your own pantry and did something with it. What was that?
I believe it was Old Bay seasoning, and it was many years out of date at that point. It's I may have inherited that from my mother, perhaps, but yeah, it was many years out of date. And again, it gave us an opportunity to go through and find all those things that that we had too much of, or things that when we purchased them, we only needed 1/8 of a teaspoon, and we had to buy it by the 3-ounce container. And so again, people started just around, it literally turned into around the world at one point. People sending in, hey, we've got this, we've got this, we've got this. Look what we did with this. Look what we did with this. Again, I can't think of a better way to put it, is just, again, the floodgates open and people started showing us what they had for talent.
In the first couple of weeks, you reached out to your food network in the area for the sort of the charter membership. Is that right?
There were
the first week.
Again, as things first started, it was my Facebook friends, and I'm lucky enough to have had a good number of people both around the country and actually internationally. I had a number of friends that were I had met through work or through travel myself, and that's what's kind of nice about it, is when one of those seeds would be planted either in France, or it'd be planted in the West Coast, or in Chicago, or in actually one very active member we had was he's living in Thailand, somebody that I had worked with in the airline industry, and one of the first supporters, as a matter of fact, has been there right through it, and it's kind of interesting to see, you know, popping something out, and all of a sudden from halfway around the world, you're getting reactions to it, which is instantaneous, which is pretty rewarding as well.
I bet. At what point, how soon did you start to think there might really be something on fire?
It was within the first couple of weeks. When the first numbers were popping up, you hit 1,000, you hit 2,000, and at that point it seemed amazing. Yeah, I thought the numbers were incredible, that we were going to hit that. You know, we hit 1,000 people. Oh my gosh! And they're from, at that point, you know, they're from 14 countries. But as it grew and it grew and it grew, I actually had fears at one point that as it got as it spread around both the country and the world, there was a lot of hate and dissent going on at the time. There were just so many things that you could go in and say, hey, I want to wear a hat today. And by the end of the day, you'd have 12 people saying that, you know, they hate you because you're wearing the hat. It's making some type of horrible statement, and you and your whole family should go away. You know, things would get, and people were just saying so many horrible, harsh things. And it was like, we didn't like that. So we created this this little community, which is a nice thing that it developed into. As much as it grew, the nastiness wasn't there. And I even spoke to a friend locally. Go, what happens if it gets really big and people start doing this and that and bad things? And he goes, you don't have to worry about that. It's a feel-good type of site. That's the whole thing about it. You're not starting out controversial at all. And so we started it, and I filtered out things that did pop in once in a while. With a group, you're able to activate certain words that if certain words are used in a post, it'll let you know. So at that point, there was a lot of political things going on. There was a lot of so anytime any of that was mentioned, and it would pop up on occasion, I would just nicely make it go away, and it's kind of smoothed the waters, and things would continue, and again, just grow and grow and grow. And the level of niceness, I guess, I don't know if that's quite the word, but everybody checked egos at the door, which was incredible. You'd have somebody that would put out a grilled cheese sandwich, excuse me, versus somebody that would put out pan-seared scallops, and they back and forth. There would be equal compliments. There would be equal appreciation for it, equal support for everybody's efforts, and saw it across the board. I've said this from the very start. There are people that I know were millionaires, to people that I knew that lived in a mobile home, and I saw them sitting at that same table, that same virtual table, and they were completely status free, I guess. It was there again. Everybody was there for support and to learn. We learned an awful lot of different dishes that came along.
The supportiveness is definitely a remarkable aspect of the group, and we'll be talking about that a little bit more as we get into some particular members. But could you give folks an idea of exactly how big it got and how quickly it got so big, and how many countries it's involved?
Again, it jumped within a few weeks. Again, we hit 1,000, and it jumped up quickly to 8,000. That was one of the first peaks and plateaus that we hit. And shortly after that, we hit a few more. That it steadily grew up to where we are right now, which is a little bit over 11,000. And it's been the fact that it's been 2 years, and we've had a steady growth of members. Some leave, some new ones come on, but it's been nice and steady. But the fact that 2 years after this started, and it was started for a particular reason and a particular environment. It's different now, but it's just as strong. We have people that were posting on day one that are still posting today. We have people that joined yesterday that are posting and starting to enjoy the camaraderie that is in there.
What keeps the momentum going? Because as you say, it started as a pantry cooking, sharing secrets kind of thing, which is very helpful and great service. And circumstances have changed for everyone, and yet still the momentum continues. How's that? Why?
I think it's not the best place to learn something. It's not the best place to find the best food or the most, but the feeling of camaraderie is it's like this magic little island. It is just island of calm in this world that when the rest of the world is crazy, you can go in there, you can look around, you can find things that you like, you can find things that stimulate you, you can compliment other people. You don't have to, there's no pressure on it, and people go out of their way to say positive things about something that may not outwardly be the most attractive thing in the world as well. But people have made a point within the environment to go out of their way to say something positive. So
how did that positive tone get set in the first place? And how did it come to be self-policing like it is?
Well, okay, can we go into my friend Micah? which
course,
to me,
absolutely.
to me is the absolute personification of the support and the camaraderie that's come out of the quarantine kitchen. Now, within those first few days that there's Micah and myself right there. Now, within the first few days, I started getting a few posts from this person that I'd never heard of before. And they weren't what everybody else was posting at the time. One of the first posts comes up and it's a ramen noodle mixed with probably sausage gravy. There we go, some sausage, hard-boiled eggs, and a tab. And I'm looking at this, and my immediate reaction is somebody's messing with me. Somebody's. I'd had that conversation with a friend that said, you're not going to have those negative aspects. And I go, oh, this guy, somebody's screwing with me here. This is, and with that was also the fact that this is it would be posted as, this is my 875 calorie dinner, combined with my blah, 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 breakfast. It comes up to 2250, my calories for the day. I've been the same size since 2014. And as I looked at the numbers were right. It wasn't just an arbitrary numbers thrown in there. So I started looking into who was posting these. And it turned out that this person had been doing this for years, literally years. These combinations of food that made absolutely no sense to me, to ultimately to a lot of people that wound up started looking at it. And as I looked into the backstory of the person that was posting these things, there was a reason for every bit of it. Micah has been a cancer patient since he was 6 years old. He's in his 30s now. And he's had his jaw replaced with a titanium jaw at one point, and even that broke. And his swallowing and his taste had been compromised by both radiation and chemotherapy. And so these strange combinations, these weird textures, these wild flavors that don't seem to work very well together are actually a mechanism that helped him to thrive, because now he can taste it. He can enjoy the meal, as opposed to eating something that, eating wheat germ and tofu, which he's not going to enjoy, and it's going to be probably a little bit more difficult for his system. He knows what his system does and how it works, and this helps him thrive. And so all of a sudden I realized he wasn't screwing with me. This was a way of life. And so I started to respect that. And other people would come in and they'd see it. And all of a sudden they'd go, oh, what's this garbage? What's this? And it would very often set off some of those filters I'd mentioned earlier, or Micah himself would say, hey, somebody's picking on me about this. And I would, basically take them aside and say, hey, listen, it's this situation. And those things stopped. And all of a sudden, people started going in a completely opposite direction. They would show, again, that picture that we had there with the eggs, with the tab, with these things that it's just a strange thing to look at. But people started to go in and say, oh, wow, I haven't seen tab for a long time. Or, wow, that looks like that might be pretty smooth together. How do those eggs work with that? And so people would actually go in and start making positive comments about it. And the same with his outfits as well. Again, every day he dresses different than the mainstream. And people will go in and oh, rocking the outfit, Micah, and they've become very positive, very supportive of it. And so again, the food might look like a train wreck, but the people will go in, they'll purposely find something positive to say about it. And if you have somebody new or somebody that hasn't been exposed to them, they will come in and somebody will still say, oh, that's awful. Why are you eating that? Or they'll try to go in and try to get them to start eating healthy, as opposed to some of these things. Literally, the wheat germ and the tofu would be much better for you. Then all of a sudden, as soon as that happens, all these people come out of the woodwork. It's beautiful. All these people that are so supportive, and as soon as something negative is said, bam, no need to say that, move along. We don't need you to do that. And they're extremely protective, but the support that I've seen is absolutely amazing. And to me, it's a complete success story of the kitchen, that we created an environment that is not only positive, but it's go out of your way positive to help somebody else, to bring somebody else up.
Mhm. You've called Micah the mayor of Quarantine Kitchen, everybody's favorite member.
He is. Everybody loves him. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. The number of people that'll, again, and it doesn't matter what he posts. Sometimes the things that he posts are pretty radical, and they love him for exactly as he is. So
That's wonderful. And you had said that you were able to relate to Micah beyond just the food, because you've had health concerns of your own. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, actually, when we started the kitchen back in March of 2020, at that point I was probably a year into a diagnosis of stage 4 neuroendocrine cancer. I had been, again, as everybody was sheltering, I was doing the same thing myself. The particular cancer that I had was it's an incurable one. The only way that you can cure it is to get rid of it. Basically, they have to go in and cut it out. And I'd gone through a series of operations, and it worked somewhat. But around the time that the kitchen started, and shortly thereafter, actually my health was started to deteriorate. And so as that was happening, it was actually wonderful to have this positive influence of a support system of people from all around the world. And it got brought up once in a while. People knew what was going on with my health. But to have that support system was fantastic. And luckily, a little bit over a year ago, we found a tumor that had been hidden away for the entire time. And so rather than with a terminal designation, once we went in and got rid of that, I've been in remission at this point for over a year and a half. So about half of the quarantine kitchen, I was probably having to find somebody to take over for it. And now I plan to run it forever. So
that's fantastic that you're able to pull through like that.
And food is such a big part of that world as well. Whether it's psychological, whether it's just fuel, when a person's going through both treatment or the ravages of the disease, and sometimes it's the ravages of the treatment that take so much out of you. As long as you're able to get some calories into you, it doesn't always have to be wheat germ. Sometimes it can be an empty calorie, but it's just getting into you and giving you the strength to do something. As we were, when the kitchen first started, again, we were dealing with meager supplies in a lot of things. And in the same way, you had a lot of cancer patients or people that were trying to pull small things together because they didn't have the opportunity to get out and get to the stores. And so this gave them much more of an opportunity to keep their health up, to keep the calories flowing through.
I could see how that would be supportive all around. How did you find the motivation to cook and eat when your health was like that?
It was you had to. For lack of a better term, it's again, you got to get those calories into your body, and mine was my cancer was kind of bizarre. The treatment itself actually turned me into a 4-time-a-day insulin-dependent diabetic. So prior to within probably 2 months of treatment, I had to go start doing insulin every day, and that on top of everything else that I was pricking myself to check my blood. I was giving myself these shots. And so I said, no, I've got to find something in my world to control. So I couldn't control the treatment, so I could control what I ate. And so through modifying and utilizing a lot of the things in the quarantine kitchen, where I was able to be inspired by any number of people. Again, people putting things in there from hamburgers to truffled risottos. There's such a wide area of things. I was actually able to wean myself off the insulin. I lost 65 pounds and wean myself off the insulin, because as I started to get healthier, I was having lows instead of having it control the highs. And that's been a couple of years that I've been off it completely at this point. So, and we gained a couple pounds back, but not too many of them. And that's the wonderful thing about the journey is with the cancer journey, I've learned about how to eat. I've learned how my body reacts to things. So instead of going, gee, that looks good, now I understand why it looks good, or I understand how it might affect my body so much more than I did before.
I'd imagine that a lot of people learned a whole lot more about food during that period through Quarantine Kitchen. And besides yourself, that you have quite a few notable food people there. You have a television food personality out in Kansas City, Missouri.
Dave Eckert, who's been in the food business for years. I think we've got a couple of pictures of some of Dave's dishes. He's probably one of our most prolific posters. He he probably posts on a daily basis some pretty nice looking stuff, and it might be what he had for breakfast that day, or it might be something that he's putting together for a some type of a presentation. But he does some beautiful stuff. Oh shoot, I can't. I've got a friend that's that is a chef on a yacht in Monte Carlo, Monaco. Oh, we said it earlier. That's one of his paella dishes right there, as a matter of fact.
Who did this? Is this Dave Eckert or the?
No. This is actually Demetrio.
Oh.
There we go. We're going to call it that from this point on. Demetrio, again, who works on a private yacht in Monte Carlo. But I was looking today and I saw a picture of somebody that had burnt some grilled cheese sandwiches, and they had said, oh, went too far with this one, and different people were reacting to it, and he was reacting to it. But again, this person that's a chef in Monte Carlo is reacting to somebody that burnt their grilled cheese here in Maine. So, and the funny thing with the burnt grilled cheese, every comment on it was a positive comment. Oh, it's perfect that way. Oh, you just scrape a little bit there, and it's, at no point does anybody go, yeah, good move, butthead. but they go in. Oh, what type of cheese did you use? And again, very positive, very upbeat.
That kind of supportiveness and positivity in a group online is just so rare, where there's usually such just snark and vehemence and nastiness, a lot of it coming from anonymity. But it seems like that's just the generally accepted ethos at Quarantine Kitchen now.
It's if it does happen, if things do pop up, and sometimes it's again, a new member perhaps it didn't see, and didn't follow the rules. We don't have rules, and that's the wonderful thing about it too. Very often you go into something that says, don't do this, don't do that, don't say this, don't say that, and it's a 3-page notation before you ever get to being able to enjoy what's in there. We literally don't have any rules. And early on, I kind of summarized it up, and excuse it, but basically the only rule is don't be an asshole. and it's carried through. That applies in so many different areas of the group. Don't be critical of this. Don't if there's an opportunity to raise a stink, don't raise the stink. Walk away from it. Be the bigger person for it. And again, 2 years later, if anything, it is more proper than it was early on, because a lot of those are things that resulted from growing pains. As the things that very often change doesn't come until pain exists. We don't want this, and so we have to have it happen to know we don't want it. And it has evolved in such a way that people, again, with the sharing that's going on and the support, there's really no room for the negative.
That's great. And so what are some other some of the more memorable dishes or posters?
Well, as I've said before, the nice thing about it is we have people that have posted from around the world, from all different spots in life. Former Secretary of State Matt Dunlap is a regular poster. He and his different people in his family post regularly to the site. Another aspect of it that's really kind of nice. That's a nice.
Oh, lovely.
That's a rack of lamb from Matt. Matt actually does have a background as a cook, as a matter of fact. I worked with Matt back in the 90s at the University of Maine. He was a cook back at the University of Maine in Orono when I was working there as well. And
Matt's in Maine now?
What's that?
Matt's in Maine now?
Well, Matt is, again, former Secretary of State, Matt Dunlap.
Of course, sorry, new to Maine, pardon.
Yeah, no, and as a matter of fact, we had one recipe contest, and I kind of asked him if he wanted to judge it, and we could do it by ranked choice voting, but he ran right away from it. He didn't want anything to do with it. One other aspect of it too is it's not an area where people are coming in and going, "Hey, this is my business. Come buy stuff from me." We've been very lucky with that. I've kept that down as much as I can, but the nice thing about it is we have people that have these businesses. There's a person right here locally that has a beautiful catering business. They do some beautiful take-home meals. As a matter of fact, it's funny. They're mentioned every once in a while, but it's by somebody else saying, "Hey, we used their product." But the principal, Jenny MacArthur Purdy, regularly posts different things that she and the family have eaten, but at no point are they pushing the business, which is the wonderful part about it. They know that this is the community side of it. That's a beautiful buffalo macaroni and cheese. I think they'd put like the Flaming Hot Cheetos as part of the top. But again, it's not a promotion of the business. This is what we have at home. That's a beautiful beet salad as well.
Nice.
There.
That's lovely. What's on top beneath the cheese?
What's that?
Pasta? Is that pasta beneath the cheese?
It's pasta beneath there with a little bit of asparagus, some of the probably roasted beets, and a bit of feta on top. Again, a combination that we don't always, it's not a classical combination, but you start combining different things that you have in the pantry, in the fridge. And people have come up with so many different new flavors that they never had before. We all learned different skills. The big thing was at first baking the bread in the cast iron skillet. That took off. I think the New York Times started it, but we had everybody and their brother was showing different versions of doing it. Dutch babies were a big thing for a while. With the heated cast iron and the baked pancake.
Make a nice dramatic presentation.
It's a beautiful presentation, combination of some different techniques that you normally wouldn't use. And as a matter of fact, I presently work in the school nutrition program, and we just won the regionals, myself and one of my a young chef from Hamden Academy, And we did a Dutch baby that was inspired from the quarantine kitchen as our presentation for the breakfast item.
Congrats.
And we won the regional, and next week we're going for the final for the state. So again,
Fantastic.
inspiration from the kitchen into outside. We did that. We also did a beautiful roasted beet pesto. Tossed. I think, as a matter of fact, there may be a picture of that. That I put it out on the kitchen before. There it is, right there. That's
Oh, lovely.
the pesto is just so vibrant red. It has these wonderful flavors of beets, and once you roast it, it just extends the number of flavors in it. A little bit of, again, cashews and some there's a little bit of feta on top. Just a wonderful flavor. And you get to talk about different things when you do it. This flavor, after you eat it, 10 minutes later, you can still taste it in a good way. You know, it's not repeating itself by coming up with gas, but you've got this nice flavor in the back of your throat that came about as from this. But those are things that you can share in the kitchen as well. It's not something that's cold and here's the recipe, boom, boom, boom. You can get in there and people can interact about it. You can, hey, try it this way, try it that way. So the variations are a lot of fun too.
And so at this point, you've got thousands and thousands of recipes collected through Quarantine Kitchen, and there has been talk of a cookbook, right?
There's been talk of a cookbook from day one, but what a daunting, especially as it started to grow. At one point, it said, "Okay, that's nice. We could do a 100-page cookbook of this and the other thing." And all of a sudden, when you're looking at 20, 30,000 different recipes, and at this point, they're all not written out as a regular recipe. Some of them, here's the picture, and you're not going to get the recipe until somebody asks for it, or but it could be the basis of a wonderful series of cookbooks. Because we've covered so many different areas and so many different dishes, it certainly could be different categories. And given my druthers, it'd be fantastic, to take Tim's recipe for chicken marsala, and this is how it was presented in the kitchen, and this is Tim's background, this is how it works, and this is our version of it, and have the printed recipe that would be easy to follow and a proven recipe. And just to take them from, it'd be kind of fun making that transition from everybody's contributions to a professional, a professionally developed. But takes a while. It takes a while.
That's the thing. It would be fantastic. It would be a lot of work. What would it take, practically speaking, for you to be able to put a cookbook together?
It would, my gosh, it would. That would certainly be a full. I think you'd want it to be a full-time venture to make it happen, or set your sights. The trouble is there are so many things to choose from. It's not a case of choose one of the 12 things that are there. It's which one of these many tens of thousands of things are we going to narrow it down to? But it would take a while. And when we first started, again, it was a fantastic idea, and we were thinking about even doing it virtually, doing it as an online cookbook. My health at first wasn't in such a place that I felt comfortable that I could have dedicated the time and the energy that was necessary for it. And again, we were in lockdown, so we weren't seeing too many faces other than the neighbors across and even that was across 2 fences with masks on each side. I would love to do it if I could find the resources to get myself a nice little kitchen, and even produce some videos. I think that would be one of the most exciting continuations of the kitchen, is to actually have an opportunity to sit down with some of the members and together cook one of their dishes, or they bring it in and they cook theirs and I cook my version of it. And I think that would be a huge joy to bring some of these people together. Kind of a nice traveling show as well, travel around the country, meeting up with everybody to cook in each of their quarantine kitchens.
That would be so much fun. What a great next chapter for the quarantine kitchen.
That would be an awful lot. You can get myself a food truck and go around the country with it. It would.
We've got some questions from folks. One of them is, what have you learned that changed your cooking?
I would say prior to this, I never enjoyed baking at all. I've always been there are bakers and there are cooks very often. Baking is a certain type of mentality. It's a very distinct, there are rules when you're baking. They call it a formula as opposed to a recipe very often. And I'm used to cooking from the hip. You taste it, oh, it needs a little bit more of this, or it needs a little bit more of that. You can't do that with a baked good. But with the time that we had with the kitchen, and certainly with the input of everybody sending these things in, I've gotten quite good at that. New York Times bread, for example. I've learned to bake many things that I would have avoided before, both from exposure now to them, and again, especially when it first started out, having the time to be able to go through and say, all right, let's try this now. I was absolutely amazed at the skill level when people started putting different recipes and then dishes forward. I thought maybe we'd see an average skill level of a 5, if you want to call it that, from being a horrible cook to a 4-star chef. But all of a sudden, these dishes started coming through, and they were 8s and 9s across the board. I was absolutely amazed at the level of talent that everybody's hiding behind their doors sometimes at home. There are a lot of chefs that have a lot of potential, huge number of chefs that have some potential.
Did you learn some tricks from people?
I did, again, probably more so in the baking world.
Yeah.
Again, one that I tried to avoid as much as I could, but taking that direction, those, I can't tell you a particular trick necessarily that I brought forward. They have the old one about the kale and using, if you use enough coconut oil on the kale, when you're cooking it, it makes it much easier for it to slide out into the trash. A lot of those little hints and things popped up as well.
That's great. Well, I'd imagine with the baking, since you had the time to investigate it more deeply, it would become more approachable after a while, once you get your hands in there and have the patience to because it can be very painstaking and the measurements need to be precise.
There are chemical reactions that take place, and you do need this much of an acid to activate this much of a base, and there are things it never fit in my world. But it's kind of funny, through my cancer journey, I guess, for lack of a better term, I've changed so many things, so many different values, so many different outlooks. I've learned so much about life from it, and sometimes it's okay to spend that time and put the attention to it. It doesn't have to be the fast thing all the time. It's and the sharing of the food is something else that people just, it wasn't there before, or it didn't, it was sort of an empty spot, and people, it filled needs all the way around, and they were needs that we didn't necessarily know that we had. In the same way that there were people that that had dark sides of them that you didn't know that they had until they went out on, again, the anonymity of the web sometimes allows people to say things that I can't believe they said that, the person that I know. But in the same respect, those times made it for people to have to reach out and say, hey, I need some help. And it might have been from information. It might have been, yeah, I'm down to my last pound of flour. We saw a little bit of that going on as well. Different people trading things back and forth as, at that point, if you were the lucky one that figured out how to buy the 50-pound bag of flour, there were always a bunch of people that couldn't get it down the road. So it was kind of nice to see that breakdown too.
Yeah, it's true, actually. Now that I'm remembering, it wasn't easy to get.
No, flour, yeast, rice was another one. I know I went out and because of food service connections, was able to bring in a couple of larger quantities of things to use. And I know I had people that needed flour that we didn't. Yeah, we're not going to use it all at this point. Hopefully the shortages will end sometime.
Yeah.
It eventually turned around or just went to different things.
You've called Quarantine Kitchen the world's largest potluck dinner, with everyone gathering around the table.
Everybody bringing their own dish. And the nice thing about it is that's all that they're bringing. They're not bringing ego. They're not bringing attitude. They're not bringing negative energy. They're bringing the meal, the love that went into it, because very often it's a case of people trying new things, people putting themselves in a place that they normally wouldn't do, and so they try it and they're putting themselves out there. And they know that safety net is there behind them. That trust fall, people go back and so they know that they put it out there with a burnt grilled cheese sandwich, they're not going to be criticized for it. They're going to find the positive side of the grilled cheese.
And that's so important for them to, because you can feel very vulnerable, I suppose, putting pictures of your creation out there for people to comment on. It's, I'd imagine that it's not easy for some folks, for a lot of people.
And then it happened at first when we started things out. Again, people not knowing what the reactions were going to be, but as we've gone along, people that are regularly that have been members for a short period of time don't have that hesitation at all. Sometimes somebody new will come in and will say, this isn't quite up to the standards, or this isn't quite this. And the nice thing is they're immediately embraced. People immediately start saying positive things again, bringing them right into the fold. And so it's, you don't have that. Nobody comes in and says, here's my apple pie, and then they run crying because somebody made fun of it. Never happens.
Good.
Never ever happens.
Somebody's asking if there are many members from Maine.
We of the 11,000, I'm thinking that probably 6,000, right in that, maybe a little bit less than 6,000 are from the state of Maine. Everybody else,
11,000 total.
Yeah, and again, we're probably 75 countries around the world. I think we're in every single state, and it might only be one or two people in some of these states, but it's nice to see the larger populations, whether it be California, New York. Some of those places have a good number of participants in it. Florida has a good number of participants as well. Texas has a good number of participants as well.
Somebody's asking if you've noticed particular trends in types of food that people are posting.
Sometimes they're a self-perpetuating trend. Again, when we were discussing the Dutch babies earlier, when the first couple of people tried a Dutch baby, everybody was trying the Dutch baby following that. I'm not seeing any particular health trends. I'm not seeing any particular product trends. You know, it's everything's not chicken, everything's not beef, everything's not. It's across the board. And sometimes they're vegetarian. It's
Why do you think it is so eclectic like that, and not you know, kind of skewed towards certain trends or particular ingredients? I mean, chicken is so hugely popular. Sometimes I mean, some people just would eat chicken 4 or 5 times a week.
I'd like to say that we don't necessarily pick up on a lot of the trends is because we're the ones that start them.
I like it.
There may be reading into it a little bit. I know that you and I had the discussion at one point about Stephen King had shared a picture from the Quarantine Kitchen of a posting that someone had done of a food artist, and it may have been Bernie Sanders back when when he was sitting in the chair, and all of a sudden he's pictured everywhere. There's a particular member we have that does the most beautiful food sculptures and all. But at the time, I've got to double check on her name. It's awful. I can't think of it right now. But somebody had posted one of her pictures, and Stephen King had seen it and had reposted it. And all of a sudden, a little bit of hubbub erupted because it sounded like Stephen King was saying the person that had reposted the picture was the original poster, and other people are going, "No, that's our friend Susan." I can't remember the other half of it. And we figured things out, and the other person wasn't trying to take credit for it. And luckily, this other person that is the artist wound up joining the group, and we regularly get to see her product. But I didn't take from that we're having a negative incident in the Quarantine Kitchen. I saw it as Stephen King's in the Quarantine Kitchen, and he reads the Quarantine Kitchen. So I thought that was some pretty good exposure as well.
Not bad. You got a pretty stellar fan.
You take out of it what you can. You know, like I say, I didn't take the conflict out of it. I took the fact that Stephen King's in this Quarantine Kitchen. So
there's a question here from Allie McCann saying, "I'm curious, did people use the Quarantine Kitchen to help with Thanksgiving menu planning ideas, or did people post a lot of ideas for Christmas cookies? I would think it's such a great hive for ideas."
Usually just before any major holiday, either through sometimes I'll do a leading post, you know, what's everybody doing for this particular, you know, what's everybody grilling for the 4th, and you'll get certain things that people are doing. But very often it'll evolve on its own, saying, "Hey, we're doing this," and not a whole bunch of planning. It's more, this is what we did very often, but you'll see the lead up to it as people are starting their preparation work and different things like that. And they can be very extensive. It can be the entire, when we're referring to Thanksgiving, it could be literally from soup to nuts. You know, this is 37 pictures of our Thanksgiving process. And you'll see what they did, everything from the salads to the molded gelatin ones with the the celery and the lime jello and the and it's kind of funny too to see some of those things as with different generations. I'm over 60, and some of the older folks and such as myself will post certain things, and there are younger people that have never heard of some of the stuff. You know, oh my gosh, where did that come from? Or it's hilarious. Bread pudding. There were people that younger people that had never even heard of bread pudding before. I thought it was very interesting.
They gotta get that. I mean, Jello molds are one thing, but The bread pudding.
That old Waldorf Jello mold for Thanksgiving. I bet I could find that mold somewhere in the back of the cupboard somewhere as well.
That was my mom's specialty.
Every year.
Now, beside the holidays, what about seasonal ingredients? For instance, now as we're getting into spring, are people starting to use a lot of seasonal spring produce?
And we're getting some at this point. Again, we're not quite there yet, obviously locally, but as gardens start to develop, you'll see people starting to use all of their products. And they certainly do say, hey, this is from my place. This is from the farmer's market, or we got it from this spot. Foraging, I'm a mushroom forager. So as soon as the mushrooms start popping up, I'll be posting different things that we can do with the morels or the chicken of the woods and different items that are a little bit out of the ordinary.
I think I remember a post of yours from early on where you showed an assortment of mushrooms that you'd harvested. Is that right?
Yeah, I sometimes when I get into that mode, I just become mushroom guy, and everything you see from me for the next 3 months will be somehow related to mushrooms. And it might be something, might be in a pierogi, or it might be in a sauce, or it might be just sauteed. But I'm always finding a way to, well, there we go. That's an udon noodle soup that I had: lobster mushrooms, black trumpets, porcini, and I think lobster mushrooms as well in that. So that's a perfect example of making the best of what we have, either in the pantry or what we can fill the pantry with from outside. It's wonderful. Mushrooms in particular, sometimes I'll come back and realize that if I bought these in a store, this would have been $500 worth of mushrooms or something. That that you can dry them and keep them and use them as time goes on, instead of again paying the crazy prices. And you eat you wind up eating like a king, but you literally paid nothing for them other than a little bit of effort.
It's wonderful. You know what you're doing. I've heard that there are old mushroom foragers and bold mushroom foragers, but not bold mushroom foragers.
Exactly. In the state of Maine, there aren't that many that will put you down permanently. There are a couple, but I always had a three-step process when I tried a new mushroom. I'd do a spore print to see how it was. I'd double check with another friend that was relatively local, a little bit more experienced than I would. This is what I have, and then I'd try a little bit of it. And if I got up the next morning, I figured at least 2 out of 3 work. So I think we're good.
Right. There's one question for you from someone. If you were on a deserted island and could only eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be? The person says that mine would be French fries. The person.
Wow. Ramen noodles. That picture made me think of it. There's so much variety you can do with them, and the flavor is so. Not again. I've got to bring a few condiments with me when I go there. But
any particular brand of ramen?
I'm sorry.
Any particular brand of noodle?
Not at all. And as a matter of fact, all I use the packages for generally are, because I can get the noodle from it. I don't use the packages of seasoning and things. It's very simple to make yourself a really delicious Asian flavored broth to go with it, and add vegetables and different items into it. So that thing that you pick up for 45 cents by the end of the day can be quite a delicious meal and filling as well. Any level of spice that you want with it. It's not, again, not rocket scientist. It's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and when you find what you like, it makes it that much easier.
Beautiful. Well, I think that's it for our time. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And I'd like to remind you, please, to subscribe to the Portland Press Herald. And good night to you and to our guest, Brian Ross of the Quarantine Kitchen.
Thank you so much, Tim, and everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.